Welcome to Understanding Insight and Motivation for Positive Change. So, hopefully, everybody here that's watching this is interested in changing something. One thing we're going to talk mostly about is substance use, because this is a substance use related topic here. But really, what we're going to talk about here is about changing anything. In life, it's about change and it's about growing as a person. So, let's talk about what that's about. So maybe you've seen this little symbol on some activities that are being done. Maybe you haven't, but usually if you have, it means that this is based on taking the escalator, which in a nutshell is just a method that's just based on being motivational and being really person-centered, in the sense that everybody changes differently. There's different patterns people follow to get better, especially with substance use. So we'll get a little more into that. But what I want you to do is you should have a pen and paper out, because there are going to be some activities, and this is about learning about yourself, and sometimes that requires a little bit of work, not a lot, but a little bit. So let's pause here for a second just to get a pen and paper out. Make sure you have something to write on, and I'll let you know when you need to do some writing. At any point during this, if you want to take notes, that's fine, but there'll be specific times where you're going to have to list a few things about yourself, because hopefully you want to learn a few things about yourself. So that makes sense, I hope. So get your pen and paper out while I'm sitting here talking, and let's move on. Okay, so one thing about the escalator method, it's a harm reduction method, and there's a lot. We could do a whole other talk about what harm reduction is, but the one part of harm reduction that I want to just emphasize is that harm reduction is about gradual change. You hear the stories about somebody seeing the light or having some kind of epiphany or awakening, and then all of a sudden everything gets better overnight. And that does happen, but that's not really the norm. Most people change gradually, and that's fine. A good example that people that don't use drugs can identify with is losing weight. It's very rare that you hear somebody just say, "Hey, I want to lose 50 pounds," and then they hit the gym and change their eating habits, and 2 months later they look great. It doesn't work like that. Most change is gradual. It takes a lot of work, a lot of some ups, some downs. So this method is really about taking that into account. As long as you're moving in the right direction, you're moving where you should be, and gradual change is okay. Obviously, we love those stories of change where somebody does have some kind of sudden great miraculous change, but we also want to understand that it's not fair to expect that of everybody. But again, as long as you're moving in the right direction, we want you moving in a positive direction. Positive change is what it's all about. And this whole method is really just about insight and motivation. And we're gonna talk about those two concepts extensively. You're gonna hear all about insight and motivation and how those are the factors that drive change and in a positive direction. You need those. You need to maintain both insight and motivation the whole way along the way. And if you can maintain those, you can make that gradual change. But we will definitely be getting into that in detail. Okay, let me see here. So let's talk about this concept of change while you look at this weird little thing here. So, everybody wants a better life. It's safe to say, it's a human basic need to want a better life, and life is about change. You go through grammar school to middle school to high school, and the world guides you through change. You go to the next grade, the next grade, and you're changing. It's kind of like preparing you for adulthood. But when you get out of school, does it stop there? It shouldn't. Life is about constantly changing for the better. And obviously, if you're in some kind of substance use treatment program, you're here to change for the better. You have something in front of you. A very formidable task often is getting off of drugs or alcohol, but also mental health as well, another challenge. But these are things that that change is required. You rarely just wake up one day and feel better when you have a problem. It takes some change. So everybody wants that better life, and it's a process. Let's leave it at that. People want that. They want that story of like striking it rich. And all of a sudden You know, people sometimes wait for that magic answer. You know, you might have money problems, and all of a sudden hope for that get rich quick scheme, you know, or a scratch, or do the scratch off, and all of a sudden all your problems are over, and you get $1 million from some miraculous way. And yes, that happens, but it's very, very rare. Again, the same point. Change requires usually gradual work, putting things in. And also, people look for magic answers, happy little answers, and in life, and those do happen also. But really, most change is about slow, gradual, putting in the work, putting in the time, and building your insight, building your motivation, and change comes along with that. So that's what you're here for, and that's what this program that you're in is helping you to do, helping you to change for the better. So but ultimately you got to do the work. But the counselors in whatever program you're in, they're here as your guide, as your helper. You know, they're on your team to try to help you change for the better. Because that's ultimately what we want. We want that change. People are afraid of change, but really, you know, as the cliche goes, change is good. You know, if you leave the program you're in right now a better person than when you got there, then the program worked. And you know, you might still have a little way to go, but you wanna change for the better instead of just looking for those magic answers. So just think for a minute. I'm going to start with some just thinking to yourself. You know, obviously this is a video, so you can't really talk, but why are you here? You know, honestly, it's time to get honest with yourself. You know, there may be why you're here, why you tell people why you're here, or why you tell your probation officer or your boss or whoever sent you, or your wife or but there's the real reason, that why are you here in your own head, in the secret place in your mind? Why are you here? Think about that, because that's what really matters. Your reasons for being here, your reasons for being in this situation, and for what you want to get out of this situation. So with that, what are you supposed to be changing? Here you are in this program, whatever program you're in, and you know, keeping in mind this is designed for substance use, so hopefully it's a substance use program, or there might be mental health aspects involved, which is quite common, goes along with it. But what are you supposed to be changing? So again, just not asking you to write, maybe if you want to jot down some notes, we're going to get more into this in detail, but what are you supposed to be changing? What about you? Your behaviors, your thinking, your attitudes? That matters when you can start to identify what you're supposed to be changing. So obviously, if you're here for substance use, in some way, shape, or form, you're supposed to be changing your substance use. Whether you're going to be using less, going straight for abstinence, you know, you'll figure that out along the way. Your counselor is going to help you figure that out. If you're in a legal situation, they're going to have a say in it as well. So, but you need to understand where you're headed. What's the eventual goal with your substance use? And also comes, you know, substance use doesn't exist in a vacuum. There's a lot of emotional, behavioral stuff. You know, people use for different reasons, but it almost always involves some kind of emotional or behavioral situation. So how are you supposed to be changing those things? You know, your anger, your sadness, maybe behaviors like aggression, or maybe you know, depression, all sorts of things, right? That go along with substance use. But think about that. What do you need to work on? Also, mental health. It depends on what study you look at, but the vast majority of people who are struggling with substance use issues also are struggling with some form of mental health issue, whether it be depression, anxiety, mood swings, and there's a whole host of other mental health issues as well. And you know, anxiety, just for example, you know, people talk about the opioid epidemic, but really there's an anxiety epidemic out there. There is a lot of anxiety in this world, and you know, you're not alone if you're suffering with it. It's very, very hard to cope for everybody. People who use drugs and who don't. And there's a lot of anxiety. So that's often an issue, but all sorts of mental health issues. Depression is very common as well. So, but it's good to really think about what you need to change. Why are you here in this program? Why are you watching this video right now? Why are you in this group? And also, with substance use comes a lot of all the other fun stuff, legal problems, employment problems, unemployment. You could have family problems, you know, all the trust issues that go with substance use issues, and the relationship problems. So think about that as one big thing. It's all interrelated. There's all this together. You got your substance use, all your emotional, behavioral, mental health, and all the other stuff that goes along with it. So hopefully you can start to now picture where are you supposed to be. Think in terms of goals with all these things, how this is all one interrelated thing. Right. Think about what your overall goal is. And take a second. Really, where are you going to be? Where do you want to be? Take a moment to think about that. So, what drives change? We want to change, right? We've established that some kind of positive change is necessary, and that for everybody. So here you are in this program for whatever reason, and you might as well make the best of it. And you might as well, whether you're forced here, whether you want to be here, you want to try to leave here a better person and get something out of it. Whether you're here as an adolescent, you're here as a older person, male, female, whatever. It doesn't matter. There should be something that you want to get out of this for you. So we're going to look about what drives change. What factors? What's the foundation for making positive change? So it's really the interplay between these three factors: insight, internal motivation, and external motivation. So let's talk about each one of them. It's kind of like, look at it like a stool with three legs. Does that exist? I don't even know. Tripod. There, that's what we're looking at. You need each leg to kind of hold things up. And if you have these three kind of all clicking at one point, does that mean you're definitely going to change? No. I mean, you obviously have to sustain these three, but these three things give you the foundation to change, for what you need to continue, to put the work in. If you have these three things, it's what drives it, what keeps things going. And we'll break each one down little by little here. So let's talk about insight. Insight is probably the most challenging one, because quite often people who lack insight think that they have insight, and it's hard. Sometimes life has to give us insight, like getting arrested or having a consequence often is like a smack in the face by life that can be very, very enlightening and give somebody insight. Like, you think everything's going fine, you think you're getting high and there's no problem, and all of a sudden you get arrested a couple times and you're like, okay, wait a minute, maybe there is something wrong here, and you gain some insight. So, but think about in terms of you. Again, this is just about you. I'm not going to ask you to write anything out, but I want you to start thinking about just being honest with yourself. Why are you here? Again, what degree do you believe it in your heart that you need to change? Again, there's what you might say, and there's what do you, in your own heart, that in your mind, that that you need to change about yourself, and you believe that you need to change. So, were you mandated here? Are you in this program or this situation because you were forced by a judge, or coerced in another way? Maybe your significant other is going to walk out on you if you get high any longer, or your job's going to fire you, or you're going to get evicted, or you're going to lose your kids for a child protective situation. So there quite honestly could be an outside force that's pushing you into this, and that's very common in substance. You're not alone if that's the situation. But quite often people are forced into programs like this, and even though they're forced internally, again, talking about inside your own heart and your own mind, you might be forced in the program and be doing the program to get the legal situation off your back, but still you might be saying to yourself, you know what, I don't want to change. I'm just going to do this to go through the motions and get everybody off my back and then go right back to where I was. But that happens sometimes. Or that would be one end of the spectrum, lacking insight. And maybe there's the other end of the spectrum. You're convinced, you know it. You know you have a problem, and you know for sure that you need to change. There's no doubt in your mind. That's the other end of the spectrum. So but most likely people are somewhere in between. You get everything. You get the people that are just kind of faking it. Hey, I'm in this program. I'm gonna do what I can to get by and fake it till I make it, or just till I graduate and whatever, get everybody off their back. And then there's the people that are super insightful and really understand and know that they need to change. And then there's the whole range of people in between, like maybe I do, maybe I don't. So just kind of think about, where are you in that spectrum? Again, personally, in your own mind, in your own heart, where are you in terms of insight? And we're going to actually get into this later. But I want you to start thinking about that. Okay, the next factor is internal motivation. So that's exactly what it sounds like. It's motivation, which is what comes from internally, so coming from within inside. So it's the desire to change. How bad do you want to change? For you, again, let's say tomorrow, if you are legally mandated here and you got some kind of a letter from your lawyer, hey, all the charges are dropped. There was some kind of court mistake, or some kind of something happened that you've miraculously got off. You can do whatever you want now. Would you still want to do this? So think about that. If everybody just left you alone, would you just go on living the way you were and just hope for the best? So, you think of the pot smoking teenager, and he's like, "Hey, man, you're forcing me in this program. I want to just smoke my weed. Leave me alone." And that's a very common scenario. But it's not just limited to kids. You get adults, maybe get a DUI or two, and say, I just want to keep drinking. I'll just be smarter next time, and I don't want to change my drinking. So you think about it to yourself. Again, this is about you assessing yourself. If everybody left you alone, would you go on living the way you were and just hope for the best? Or the other, are you seriously motivated? Is this your number one priority? Is stopping using drugs or alcohol number one for you? They say you got to make your sobriety top priority. So that would be the other end of the spectrum. But really, again, most people are somewhere in between. You get all extremes. You get the person who's like, hey, screw this, I'm only faking it, and I don't want to change a thing. I can't wait to get high when nobody's looking. And you get the people who are making it their number one goal in life, and you get people who are day to day in between. Some days they have the motivation, some days they don't. And again, look at the example of dieting. It's like that. You ever try to go on a diet? It's like there's days where you're like, you're working out and you're eating salads and you're doing great, and there's days where you're like, you know what, I want a slice of cake right now, and I'm not going to the gym. And so most people are somewhere in between, so don't feel bad if you are. But I just wanted you, again, to start just assessing that, where you are in terms of internal motivation. And finally, the last piece is external motivation and support. They kind of go together. A lot of times it starts out, that third leg of the tripod starts out as external motivation, something pushing you. But usually when you're in a program for a while, we encourage you, counselors encourage you to also gain support, which becomes your own kind of push from the outside that you've chosen to have. So even if the legal system goes away, or whatever's mandating you goes away, you have people in your life that are saying, calling you up and checking on you and who care about you. But it's all about the same form of external motivation. So think about to yourself, who or what is pushing you in a positive direction and helping you to stay there? So quite often this last piece of the triangle, this external motivation piece, is the piece that can start someone towards positive change, because a lot of people enter substance use treatment because of being pushed in from a legal situation, but also it can keep somebody going, because there's times when motivation kind of wanes down, but you have those people outside of you who keep you going. And that's why all these support groups work and things like that, because sometimes motivation comes and goes and insight comes and goes as well, and you need somebody outside of you to say, hey, look, get back on track. So where are you? Maybe you're on your own. Nobody's pushing you. Maybe you're just here and you're like, hey, I'm here on my own and I got nobody telling me to do anything. And that might feel nice, but a lot of times it's better to have somebody pushing you. So we're going to help you work on that in this program, hopefully. And maybe you're the other. Maybe you're being forced or threatened to change. And nobody likes that, but I'll tell you, that really helps, especially early on. That stay sober or go to jail, or, when somebody finally says, I'm going to divorce you, or you're going to get evicted or get fired. Again, those things are unpleasant, but they're extremely motivating. Obviously substance use is very powerful and people continue to use anyway, but a lot of times it's those legal situations that can be the difference maker when someone's struggling. We talked about it almost like like a wake up call to have somebody say, okay, you got to do this. So, and the other thing would be to have some support as well, somebody that loving, caring people that are giving you that push. So, where were you on all three factors? Again, how's the tripod standing up? How's your triangle? Do you have all three? Do you know that you need to change? Do you have some kind of internal desire to change? And do you have some force from outside helping you keep you on the right path? You got all three. There again, is that a guarantee for success? Well, I got a news flash for you. There are no guarantees for success. If there was, you know, if you could, anybody could crack the code on it, they'd be a billionaire. But we know that if you have these three, you are in the best place to change for the better. These three, you got all three cylinders kicking here, and you're in a good spot. Okay. All right. All right. Remember that pen and paper I was talking about? Get it out. All right. Get it in hand, whatever, your tablet, whatever you're going to use. I don't know. So get your paper out, and we're gonna go through it. We're gonna have you do a self-assessment. Oops, I don't know what I did there. Sorry about that. Okay, so assessing your change initiative. That's what it's called. So your change initiative, just to kind of put that into perspective, it's just a measure that where you can kind of make a self-assessment where you are, because all of these factors, insight, internal motivation, external motivation, they're not constants. They can change from day to day. As counselors, we see it all the time. Let's say someone gets a DUI, for example. They might come into the office the next day and be like, that's it, no more drinking for me, I got a DUI, or I'm motivated. And then that same person might come back a week later and be like, well, it was just bad luck, and I'm going to keep drinking. And so their insight changed in just a week or in just days sometimes. Again, external motivation can change overnight. You might have a big legal situation, or that might get resolved, or you might have, somebody pushing you, and all of a sudden that person moves out of your life, and you're like, oh, well, they're gone now. I don't have to worry about it anymore. And external motivation can change. And obviously, internal motivation changes. We talked about that before. You have good days and you have bad. So really, change initiative, it's not a one-time assessment. This is going to teach you how to keep a self-assessment of where you are. You should really be assessing it every day. Where is your insight? Where is your internal motivation? Where is your external motivation? Because you want to keep these things going strong all the time, because data is what keeps you going. It's also helpful measure for your counselor, because they can do the same thing and measure how can they best help you. Does your counselor need to help you focus on insight, on building motivation, and whatever you need based on your change initiative. So let's talk about assessing it. So really, to understand, get a full-on definition of what insight is, looked up in the dictionary. It's understanding, especially the motives and reasons behind one's actions, recognizing and looking truthfully inside of yourself. A nice definition is sight with eyes of the mind. And a real simple way to put it is self-awareness, knowing and understanding the need to change. So that's a very simple way to put what insight is. So you assess yourself. Where do you think you are? So we're going to talk about that. Again, internal motivation, I want to make sure you understand all these terms because they're so important. That's desire, interest, or drive for change that comes from within and based on what we really want for ourselves rather than what others are telling us to do. So it comes from within. And a nice, simple definition is wanting to change ourselves. That personal desire. And just to clarify that in really good terms, so you might say you really want something. So a good example would be, think about a kid who says, I want to be a doctor, right? I wouldn't mind being a doctor, right? But there's a difference between saying I want to be a doctor and saying I want to be a doctor and I want to go to med school and I want to put those years of schooling in and invest the money and time and I want to do that process. That's the kid that becomes a doctor. So just wanting the end result isn't necessarily internal motivation. It's a start. So again, saying, hey, I want to be sober and I want to live a good, happy life. Oh, but I'm not really interested in doing the work needed to get there. It's not the same as somebody saying, no, I have the desire. I want to do what I got to do. I'm ready to make the changes. I'm ready to listen and to learn and to do what I got to do. So, uh, that's a better way to formulate internal motivation. Okay. So we want to change ourselves. Okay. And finally, external motivation is people and other forces and circumstances pushing us to change, whether we want it or not, often connected with consequences of not changing. For example, being on parole, probation. External motivation come from people who support us and encourage us as well. So, and nice, simple things outside of us that keep pushing us towards change, even if we feel like giving up. And man, that's so important. Anybody who's been doing this for a while, a lot of you have, right? A lot of you, this isn't your first go around, and you know what it's like when you hit that wall, or you just say, you know what, or you get that, even worse than that wall, that stuck point where you feel like you're just spinning your wheels, and having somebody outside of you go, I'm gonna grab you by the hand and help pull you through this. That can be such a difference maker. Okay, so here you're going to actually do an assessment. Now we're going to actually use those pens and papers. Here we go. There it is again. Get the pen and paper out. So start out. You're going to start your writing here. You're going to do problem identification. Is actually write out what your problem is. Whether or not you think you have a problem, what's the main issue you're supposed to be working on right now with regard to substance use, mental health, or both. So where are you right now? So, it could be put, and write it in realistic terms. People say I smoke too much weed, or people say I drink too much, or you might say, you know what, I realize I need to stop using heroin and I need to learn a better way to deal with stress and anxiety. So in your own terms, write it out. Write out your problem identification statement. Write it out on your paper. Write the word problem identification and put it in your terms. Why are you here in your terms? It's important to start with that, because you can't really attack the problem until you have identified it, and you have to identify it in your terms. Be clear and be honest. Okay, there's those examples I brought up. Be clear and honest. Okay, just two quick examples. Okay. Now we're going to assess insight. So let's think about it. It's one of the harder ones. Start with some reasons why you might need to change. Why don't you think about some reasons? So some examples might be I got arrested, now I'm on probation, so I'm supposed to stop using, or I'm hurting my family because I'm partying too much and I'm running out of money, or list as many as you can. Maybe let's come up with 4. Let's be fair here. If you do more, but take a minute, think about reasons why you may need to change, and be honest. List as many as you can, even if you don't agree with them. Maybe somebody's telling you something. Maybe mom's nagging you and she's saying, you could be a better person. You could do a lot more with your life if you didn't drink so much. And maybe you don't agree, but maybe that is a reason. Maybe think about it. Even things as simple as saving money, using drugs, even just smoking weed can be expensive. All drugs, nothing's cheap anymore, especially when you start using a lot. Just saving money, being a better at your career. Think about the reasons why you may need to change. All of them. List them out. But at least come up with 4. Figure that's fair enough. Take a second to do that. All right. It's hard to know without actually seeing the group where you guys are at, but hopefully you came up with. Give me another second to come up with 4 good reasons. Okay. All right. We're going to move on. Remember, be honest. Okay, let's start assessing your own internal motivation for change. Okay, coming from you. Okay, what do you want to see change for the better? What do you want? Now, what are people telling you? What do you want? So let's list some things and some examples. Again, put it in honest, straightforward terms, like some of these examples. I really just want to get the legal system off and my family off my back. Maybe that's honestly where you're at. And you know what? There's no shame in being honest. If that's all you got, that's all you got. That's fine. But start with the honest. Or I want to stop feeling sick all the time. You hear that all the time with opioids. Maybe it's that physical part of it that's really kicking you. Or I want to stop spending so much money on getting high. Whatever. There's no shame in letting money be a motivator. Money is a very powerful motivator. It's like that could be the difference maker for you. Saving money, whatever it is. But list them all. List as many as you can. I think I told you to do 4. Yep. Try to come up with as many as you can, but take a minute, list out on your paper, write them out, 4 things that you want to see change. Being honest, but be realistic. You don't want to say, oh, I want to, rule the world. That's might not be such a realistic goal unless you have like evil superpowers or something, or super strength or whatever. But unless you're a Marvel superhero, something within reason, something that you want to see change, that's within grasp, having a life that you want to have. So take a minute to list out at least four. I'll just try to stop talking for a second. Okay, what do you want to change for the better? All right. And finally, last piece of the triangle: external motivation and support. Who or what is pushing you or encouraging you to change? Is it mom, dad, probation officer, employer, spouse, partner, children? Think about all the things that are pushing you. Maybe your dog is pushing you. Maybe, really, I've heard, stranger things than that. What do you have? What's going on in your life? Who's there for you? And think about encouragement. When you're down, who can you turn to? Do you have somebody you can call? Do you have somebody, what's the root word of encouragement? It's courage. When your courage is lacking, when you're feeling shaky, who can give you those encouraging words? To list as many as you can. Again, 4 would be nice, but if you got more, go for it. Okay, so let's just some time to think about what you wrote, kind of put it together, and think about what you wrote, kind of give you a second to assess things. Oops, I'm sorry about that. Okay. So what is a change initiative? We're going to actually come up with a score here, and let's kind of really understand what that is. It's, well, you think about the word initiative, look it up in the dictionary. It says the first step or action of a matter. You take initiative, like in a chess game, you make that first move. It's the right or power to begin to or initiate something. So, or the ability or attitude required to begin or initiate something. So your change initiative, again, we're talking about what drives change. It's a measure that you can use to see where your drive is, what is going to help you initiate change in your life each day. Again, it's not like you assess your change initiative once and you're set for life. You have to assess it all the time. You should always be thinking in terms of insight and motivation. And obviously the two kinds of motivation are a little different, internal and external. So it's a simple 3-letter score that identifies where your insight, your internal motivation, external motivation are. And we're actually going to take a little quiz here that it's a self-test. It's not really a quiz. Okay. So is there anything else left? Just again, so a couple of points about change initiative. Stay in the here and now. So every day your change initiative might change. So we're just talking to you to assess when you do this little self-test here. How are you today? Again, because you might wake up tomorrow and things might be totally different. And look at it like the COVID-19 thing that's happens to be going on while we're doing this. Look at how much that's changed people. Like life can change very quickly. So don't think that never look at change as like a constant. It's a changing thing. Change changes. So you want to be able to assess yourself every day. And when you're in doubt, you're going to be grading yourself on an A, B, or C level. If you're on the fence, this might sound a little negative, but go with the lower score. People tend to overrate themselves. People trying to say, yeah, I got in, I'm motivated, and you know what, or I'm really insightful. And if you're on the fence, let's say you're between A and B, go with B. Or if you're between B and C, go with C. Go with the lower score, because you want to leave room for improvement. Okay, here we go. Okay, you're going to use these scales provided to come up with your best ability to come up with your own 3-letter change initiative score, and then the video will be over, and hopefully there'll be something you can take what you wrote down and talk about it with your counselor. Okay, hopefully nobody's sleeping. You guys are still up with me. Ready? Wake up. All right, there you go. There you go. Just kidding. Okay, stay here in the now. When in doubt, choose a lower score, and this is just a guideline. It's not about who's better. When this is all over, you're not going to compare no one's better than the other. In fact, you might have a lower one. Honesty is better. I'd rather have a low honest score than a fake high score. So it's just a guideline. Okay. Insight. You're going to do pick A, B, or C. A, I'm relatively or mostly sure that I have a problem. Is that where you are in terms of your own insight? B, there's a chance I have a problem. I'm not sure, but I'm willing to consider it. Or C, I'm sure that I do not have a problem. If you're convinced, no, I don't need to be here, and that's that, then you're at C. Okay, so give yourself one score, A, B, or C. Again, if you're on the fence, go towards the lower one, because people do tend to overrate. Everybody does, not just people who use substances or people in programs. Everybody tends to overrate themselves. It's human nature. So you're not alone. Okay, let's assess your internal motivation score. Again, keeping it in the here and now just for today. A, I want to change the identified problem. Think about your problem statement you wrote earlier. I want to change it. You're sure of that. You feel it. You feel that burn. You want to put the work in. You're ready. B, I'm not sure how much I'm willing to change, if at all, but at least I'm willing to give it a try. So you're in that middle place, you know. There's something there, but maybe it needs a little work. And C, if it were totally up to me, I would not change, and I do not want to change, despite what others might tell me. So again, being honest. If your drive is not internal, and if you were given your own, if let's say your legal situation or whatever was dropped, would you just go back to what you were doing? Again, no shame in being honest. And finally, external motivation, A, B, or C. Someone that matters to me is pushing me to change, and or I am facing real consequences if I don't change. So there is something outside of you, absolutely, that is there. Hopefully more than one thing. And even if you're not in a legal situation, then you have a support system. You have people that are pushing you. And we're not talking about nagging you, people that are supportive and encouraging, that are there for you to guide you through this process. The fact that you're in a program, you have something, right? B, someone's asking me to change, but not necessarily pushing me, as there's no immediate threat of consequences, or the consequences you're facing now are not that important to you right now. So, you're in that middle thing. Yes, you got some push, but really, when it comes down to it, not as much as it's not life or death. And C, no one is putting any real pressure on me or strongly encouraging me to change right now if I don't want to. So, if you were to leave tomorrow, no one would say, "Hey, why'd you leave that program?" You're pretty much free to do as you want. Okay, should have a 3-letter score, right? ABC, AAA, BBB, CAB, whatever. Okay, hopefully you have that. So let's think about that. So kind of note to yourself, which area were your strengths? Was it insight? Was it internal motivation? Was it external motivation? Kind of maybe circle your strength. Which was your best area? Maybe if you have more than one A, which one is the better of the two? What do you got going for you right now? To have strong insight, for example, is really good. To be like, I know I need to do this. You might know you need to do it, but not be ready to do anything about it. But knowing is really strong. Or maybe you are, you have that strong external force. You're on parole or you're on drug court, and you got that really strong external thing pushing you. That's a strength. Use it. Why not? It can be it can really help you. And then assess. So if you circled your strengths, maybe underline an area that you need improvement. Of the 3 areas, which one do you kind of need to build up the most? Which, again, some stuff you can talk about with your counselor afterwards. So what does it all mean? Okay, what do we do? What did we do all this for? Is it just to keep you busy for a minute, to give your counselor a break while you had a video on? Hopefully it means more than that. So what does it all mean? Let's think about it. So obviously you want it's really what we said. This can help you to change what you need. You got to think about it like anything else in life. You're going to undergo a process, and this will help guide you through this process. So what we're going to do is hopefully when this is over, to kind of give you time, give you focus, that you can talk about this with your counselor and think about getting honest and what do you need to improve, what do you need to work on, and you can use this to kind of help you guide through this big process. So I wanted to leave, and I don't want to go on for too long. I'll give you some time to process this. So hopefully you can have your answers written out, and you guys can, when this video is over, and you can now discuss everything. All this activity, all this information is from takingtheescalator.com. If you want to look it up, that's fine. That's the website. But hopefully your counselor is using some of this stuff. It's all free tools for recovery. So thank you guys for your time. I hope you all the best, and really you're doing a good thing. The fact that you're trying, and it's hard. Don't feel bad. Don't feel discouraged if you're struggling, because life is a struggle. I don't think it's easy for anybody, and And you're here and you're fighting the fight. Good for you. So keep at it. All right, everybody, take care.